Hey, g'day everyone. Geez, this thing actually looks like it's working. I shouldn't actually say this all the time. It usually stuffs up on me. But yeah, I can see a lot of people on already, and it's great to see. Blimey, we're up to episode 11. And another interesting topic tonight. Well, I think it's interesting. It's something that I often get asked quite often, basically. Is it worth reloading? Is it worth the cost? Is it worth the time? And it's a lot of different aspects to it. Or is it just worthwhile sticking to factory ammo? So first of all, I can see a lot of people up here straight up, and I'm just going to scroll back up before I lose where I am. And I actually looked at Nobby Clark straight up. I've got to say his question's a ripper, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I just want to touch on a couple of things first, guys, and thanks again for all the support. It sort of still blows me away a little bit. Actually a lot, I should say. Catching up with heaps of people at the SHOT Show was fantastic. Some I knew, some I'd spoken to over the phone, some I just chatted to on sort of media like this. And it's great to put faces to sort of names and speak to everyone. And I thought it was a fantastic show, and to be honest with you, I'll try and support everyone I can. So again, thanks to everyone that I caught up with for coming up and saying g'day. You just can't get around to see everyone, but it was bloody fantastic. So yeah, thanks again, guys. So anyway, topic tonight, episode 11. Yes, factory ammo versus handloads. Nobby Clark, straight up. Let's get into it. Evening, Robbo. Developing loads for your rifles. Are all your rifles one projectile only? No, is the first answer there. Or have you been able to develop 2 loads for the one rifle setup? Yes, and for the main rifles that I could say that I have developed it, excuse me, 308 is one, 7mm Rem mag is another. My 243 combination gun is currently in the mix of having 2 loads developed. But what I will say is I stick with one main priority as far as one load that rifle is sighted for as its main load, and usually the second load, for argument's sake on my 308, I'll usually sight that for the 150 grain SSTs, and then I'll load down with some Trail Boss with some 110 grain VMAX or similar, and I use those as a suppressed round, as in a quieter, or what I call a puffed round, basically because it just does sounds like a 22. And often if I'm out deer hunting or whatever and I come across some wild dogs or howling a wild dog, I can use those lighter rounds, lighter loads to finish off the dogs without creating a massive echo down the valleys. So yeah, I've experimented with the 308, the 7mm again. Off the top of my head, I think there are 120 on the, well, again there might be 110, I'd have to have a look, for the 7mm and the Trail Boss. And recently I've been experimenting with the 55 grain in the 243 Trail Boss to get down to around 2200 feet a second, and I'm using that just as a suppressed load for when I'm whistling foxes to get them in closer. But the prime load for that combination gun at the moment actually surprised me. Now this gets back onto whether it's worth hand loading, and the prime load I've found that shoots really well on that is the actual 80 grain core locks for the 243, shooting almost an inch group at 200 yards. So it sort of blew me away, and I'm actually going to stick to that. And I've actually sighted that rifle at 1.5 inches high at 100, and those Trail Boss 55 grain loads shoot about level at that same distance and about 1/2 inch to the right. So I won't adjust for those as in adjusting the scope. I just got to remember where that point of impact hits. So thanks, Nobby. I love that first question. Got to say g'day to a few people here. Richard Hadfield, g'day mate. Stuart Carter. Yeah, didn't see me at the SHOT Expo. I was there Saturday, mate, all day, so we mustn't have just crossed paths unless you were there on the Sunday. Omar, come on, Robbo, even snakes are out. Yeah, I know, they're good, they keep you on your toes. 100 Fisher NZ, how are you, mate? It's good to see you here all the time, every time. Dale J, Jacob Stranieri, Aussie Outdoors. What have we got? Dan Stevens, caught up with Dan, top bloke. Evening, Robbo. I'd be interested to know if it's worthwhile for the average hunter. I take it we're talking about hand loading, obviously. Look, that really comes down to a few things. One, the sort of shooting you're doing, the amount of shooting you're doing, and whether you've got the time and whether you want to outlay the initial sort of cash to put it together. But yeah, it really comes down to probably quantity, what you expect to get out of your rifle, and whether it's shooting and doing the job that it should be doing with factory ammo. And look, like I said, with those core locks in the 243, realistically, possibly not worth it in that rifle. But I've had a lot of rifles that haven't liked any factory ammunition at all, and it is a benefit in that case. You can fine tune it. I have not found a rifle yet that I've owned that I haven't been able to experiment with different loads, different projectiles, different seating depths, and get it sort of acceptable. So yeah, it can be, but in a lot of cases, if you're not set up and you've got a rifle that's sort of shooting quite well with factory ammo, and you're the average sort of deer hunter that may sort of only fire 20 rounds a year, if that, and a lot of those might be sighting the gun in, well, it's probably not worth it. Rob14539. Hey Robbo, having recently started to shoot and hunt again after a 5-year break, it seems that hand loading is really the only option. Firstly, cost, and secondly, availability of decent factory ammo. Well, Rob, that probably comes down to a little bit like the answer to sort of the last question is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're finding that you're not shooting a lot and your rifle is actually liking some of the factory ammo, well, yeah, stick with it. But if it's not, well, yeah, then you either got to get rid of that rifle or you got to start experimenting with hand loads. So, yeah. Alright, let's just move along here. Okay, people are saying we've got some echo happening here. Not sure why we would. Let me just double check here. Is that any better, guys? Let me know. You're probably not getting anything out now. I'll just do that for a second and I'll go back to normal. Back to normal. Back to normal. Let me just check that everyone's getting audio now. I'm hoping they are. I've turned the desktop audio off. I don't know where that was coming from, that feedback. Who knows? Okay. Sorry guys, I'm just going to scroll down a bit. If someone can say that they're getting audio all good now. 708, yeah, okay. I don't know why that was coming through, but who knows, mate, technology. Alright guys, sorry about that. I'll just scroll back up. Where are we at? Alright. Make sure I haven't missed anyone here. Okay, Mitch WA. G'day Robbo, hope all is well, mate. Currently purchasing a 30-30 with a 16-inch barrel for a scrub gun. Have you got any experience with faster burning powders so top speed can still be reached? Not with a 30-30, mate. Never used one, never had the need for one. So yeah, look, I'll keep that straight to the point. I'm not going to waste your time. No, I've had no experience with a 30-30, mate. Yeah, trouble is now I'm 5-10 minutes in before I've read down enough, guys. This is the downside of it. I don't know why that did that. I'll have to look into that, but every now and then something happens that I'm not sure of. Anthony Winterfield. Hi Robbo, hope you've been well. Wondering if you've ever tried using a light on a set of binoculars for night foxing, wondering how effective it would be as it works on scopes. Well, I suppose you could. You put a spotlight out and look through your binoculars, but usually when I put the spotlight out, I'm ready to shoot. So yeah, it probably wouldn't be what I would do, and probably now if you were going to do something like that, this is probably where these thermal binoculars come into it. Because as soon as you whack that spotlight on, you better be ready to shoot, because they're not going to be hanging around too long usually, especially if they've been educated. G'day, Chris. Anthony Hawkins, I think you've got yourself on in the background, mate. No, I turned all the audio off. I don't know what's going on there. Who knows? Yeah, I'm double checking. Should be coming through well now. I just turned off the desktop audio. Righto. Fixed until you said back to normal. Oh, I don't know. Alright, much better now. Good. Let's move on. Gilly McGillface. G'day, Robbo. First up, there's an echo in your video feed. Second, I'm getting an English pointer from Daniel at Deer Point next year. Probably be male, and I'm looking for suggestions for a name. Robbo sounds like a good name. Good name. He didn't say whether it's female or male here. Hold on, unless I getting an English point from Daniel. Probably, sorry, you did say. Probably be a male. Cobber, that's a good name. Good Aussie name. Good Aussie slang. All right. Thank God that echo's gone. All good now. It's always the first, 10 minutes in before I sort these out. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, guys. Sorry again. Aussie Outdoors. What's your thoughts on annealing your cases and how often? How much do you follow twist rates and projectile weights? Let me just read that again, mate. What's your thoughts on annealing your cases and how often? I've never worried about annealing myself, but if you're probably getting into sort of getting ultra longevity out of your cases, yeah, you probably do it every 5 rounds. Some do it probably even more. And there's some good automated annealing machines now. How much do you follow twist rate and projectile weight? Yeah, reasonably closely, because it's usually quite an educated thing that's put on that box. When you buy a projectile, it'll usually say twist rates up to, or twist rates starting at sort of 9 or 9.5 inch, 1 in 9.5 inches. And recently, now on my Rough Tech, 7mm Rough Tech, I sort of tried the 175 grain ELDX, shot it like a machine gun, but I tend to push things quite hard. And it's, I think that says a minimum twist on that is 1 in, or for those projectiles was 1 in 9 or 1 in 9.5. And yeah, when I started to push them hard, they started to open up. But you go back to the 162s and rock solid. So yeah, it is important, but it doesn't mean there isn't exceptions to the rule. Sometimes if you've got some projectiles that may be right on that border of what the recommended twist rate is, it might pay to just give them a go. But if you're going out to buy them, especially some more the expensive projectiles, it might pay just to study the information that's provided first. Oh, look, here's a couple of troublemakers. Daz and Don, into the mountains. Hey, Robbo, Don and I are watching this on the big screen. Your camera is so sharp, he says you need to trim a few hairs. Well, it's lucky I've got my head up the right way and not the other way around, because there might be some trimming needed there too. Yeah, dude, I'll probably go red in the face. Every time something goes wrong, I stress. I don't know what that is. Bloody, I don't know why that audio was playing up, but I'll have to remember that. I'll have to shut that other channel down. All right, Aussie Kelpie. Thoughts on Hornady's Superformance ammo as I'm looking at running it through my 270 Win. Well, it's worth trying. As simple as that. The biggest problem with any factory ammo is, one, getting consistency in batches. So my suggestion is when you get a batch that shoots well, if it does shoot well, go out and buy 10 boxes of it, or whatever you can. I know it might be a big outlay, but I like to have sort of 3 to 5 years of buffer, just in case, just because we've had issues before, not so much in ammo, well, in some brands of ammo, we've had issues before with availability of primers, powders and whatever, and I don't want to not have what I need when I want it. So if it shoots well, yeah, go out and buy a fair bit of it. All right, Adam Bayer, trying to reload some Howdy brass. Oh, spell check. I think you mean Hornady brass, but can't put primers in them. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Whether you've got large rifle primers or small primers, check you got the right primers. But I have found with Hornady brass before that it's got very inconsistent depth in the primer pockets, and I've actually had to machine them out to even depth. Yeah, that was in my 204 only, so I can't speak of it in any other calibers because I haven't used it. All right, Stuart Carter. G'day, mate. Stuart Carter, have you used ELDX for closer shots, mate? I loaded up some 2-on-2s in my 300 Win and hoping to use them for stalking up close as well for longer shots. do you think they would break up at closer ranges? The closest I've shot a sambar hind with the 7mm shooting the 162 grain ELDX. Yeah, just double checking now that it wasn't the SSDs. Pretty sure it was the ELDX. It was about 100 yards. And it's one of our earlier videos where I actually grabbed the rough tech because we got fogged in. And I just thought, bugger this, I know the deer are over in there. And I actually walked around, got honked a couple of times, and then end up seeing one, what I thought was one, silhouetted, and next minute it actually was one. It stood up, made the mistake of stopping and looking back, and I've just drilled it pretty much textbook shot, and it just rolled over backwards. Shot went clean through, sort of hit it in the ribs here, went clean through, and it was pretty much instant death. So yeah, I've had no issue with them. Again, it's like anything, mate. Put the shot in the right place with anything, especially close, they're going to go down. Right, Anthony Horgus, audio is perfect now. Thank you. I'm glad. I wish I got no delay and I could have fixed it straight away. But stupid thing is, I've had that channel turned on before, so there must have been something else getting fed in from your computer. Anyway, moving on. Make sure I haven't missed anything there on your question, mate. Any recommendations on a quality reloading kit? If you want to go out and buy the kit, probably at the moment the RCBS Rock Chucker kit would be probably the best value for money, and probably the best quality. In my opinion, it's a bit better than the Lee kit. But there's probably others available now that I don't know about either. Because I've had my stuff for so long, I'm sort of not up with current pricing and what's available. But the Rock Chucker has always been pretty good value. Yeah, again, I don't know anything on the Hornady. I like the Hornady for the price, or better to look towards RCBS. I'd still go the Rock Chucker, mate. Richard Hadfield. Robbo, ADI powders, any difference in AR2206 and the AR2206H? Have you found? Haven't used both myself, but I think the boys, off the top of my head, I think they're using 2206H in their 223s. You'd probably have to get onto ADI there, and I think they've actually got the specs of what the differences are. I haven't looked into it because it's not a powder that I've used or have any need to, so mate, I can't really answer you there. Dan, thanks Dan, he's answering Aussie Kelpie there. Daniel Mummery, g'day mate. Evening Robbo, I got a 243 round stuck real bad in the resizing die. I've been there. I forgot to lube it. And when you say you got a round stuck, I take it you mean some brass stuck in there. Depending on the die, what I have done before is tried to undone the sort of the ball, the resizing, the capping pin, but depends on the die, mate. It can be a pain. I'm trying to think of the last one I had. It's quite a long time ago. You may, depending on the press, you may be able to unwind the die, the whole lot. Yeah, and then take the whole lot out. Look, I'd need to see the situation, but you may end up having to just go hard on that and just, yeah, it can be nasty. I've seen dies ruined. Yes, I'm not going to even, without looking at it, I'm not going to even suggest anything because there's a few options there. Christian Hackle, what grain do you use when sambar hunting? Well, when you say grain, again, guys, you've got to make the questions quite specific because obviously grain can be powder and it can also be projectile. So if I'll answer this one talking about projectile. Look, again, it's caliber as well. You know, I mean, like in the 308, I use a 150, but a 130 will also do the job. In the 7mm, I use a 162, but a lot of people use a 175. So few varieties there, mate. But basically matching getting a good velocity out of the caliber you're using that's going to get penetration and the correct expansion for the distances you're shooting. So you need to do a little bit of homework on what you're shooting. Barry W. Hi Robbo, great topic, keep it up. Thanks mate. Alright. I'm sure everyone can see Homer's little thing there. Yeah. It's very true, mate. Blimey. Labby RSA/NZ. Francois here from New Zealand. G'day. I'm loading 150 grain Berger VLD hunting in my 270 at 2,900 feet per second. I intend to use this as a long range, say 300 to 600 yards load. Any tips on shot placement using this? Hunting reds. Look, you've got to shoot within your realms of your ability and the realms of that rifle. If you know that rifle is a half-inch grouper or less, well, then you can start to thread the needle even more. But sort of when you're pushing out to the 600 yards, look, I personally don't like to see anything run off. And if I know I have the time and I can pinpoint my shot, I'll actually go for a high shoulder shot, probably the top third of the body. But if you're not confident or your groupings aren't that well, go right in the middle of the boiler room, sort of mid-chest and whatever. But expect that you may get run-offs. They'll just tense up and run. But I prefer the high shoulder shot. It's just what works for me. But I only go for that when I know I'm very confident in my rifle, the position I'm in to shoot, and I don't tend to get many run-offs. But in saying this, I'll pass up a lot of animals because I don't feel confident that I can put them down quickly. And let's remember, different situation, obviously New Zealand, you may be hunting more open areas, but you also might be hunting some real thick areas. And it doesn't take much distance for a deer to travel after being shot for you not to find it, unless you've got dogs or thermals or whatever. So yeah, just work within the realms of your confidence and your ability and the gear you're using. Thomas Cavill. Hi Robbo, thoughts on mono metal projectiles, e.g. TTSX versus copper jacket lead core projectiles? Well, if you look at one of our current videos, Deer Diary 2, where Ben actually uses some Vortex ammo with his 300 WSM, that's actually got a TTSX, and think if I'm remember off the top of my head, I think it was a 150 grain. Now that was at about 100 yards, maybe 110 yards, smacked it clean in the chest, dropped it, it was shaken on the way down. Me personally, I've had mixed results with the TTSX 150 grain in my 308, and one sambar I shot pretty much textbook at about 10 yards. Went the furthest of any deer that I've ever shot in that position, I should say. So yeah, a lot of people love them. I think you need to have the velocity to really get them to work well, and obviously the 300 WSM, the 300 Win Mag, probably the 7mm Rem Mag, which I haven't tried it in. Excuse me, guys. Yeah, look, again, shot placement. I stick. Look, when you weigh up the costs of them too, not that you're shooting a lot with sort of deer hunting rifles. Well, I'm not shooting a lot with them. To be honest with you, the ELDX, the SSTs have always done the job for me. But it's horses for courses. Like if you're shooting closer ranges in thicker scrub, you know, sometimes the Woodleys are better as well. But I actually have two loads for my 308, my Finlight, both 150 grain, the TDSX and the 150 grain SSTs. And often what I will do, especially if I'm in thick scrub or whatever, the first round will be a TDSX. The next one after that will be, and the following one will be SSTs. So in other words, if I'm in the thick stuff, that's probably the only time I put the TDSX in, purely because I think my shots will be closer, and purely at the shorter distances with the 308's probably got enough velocity to get them to expand. But if I was to use that same projectile, probably sort of shots at 200, 250 with the 308, may not have enough velocity to get it to open up, and Again, it depends where you hit too, whether you hit bone or go between ribs, so a lot of variables. The Hunting Truckie. Oh, it was great to see you on the weekend, mate. It's good to see you here again. G'day, mate. Listening from behind the wheel once again. Oh, good to see you on the road, buddy. Good to meet you at the expo. Yeah, it certainly was, mate. And I've seen 3 deer so far this evening coming down the Cann River Valley. Yeah, that's prime deer country there. You drive safe, brother. I'll speak soon. Stuart Carter, Adam Bayer. I brought some Hornady brass the other week, with really tight primer pockets, almost too tight. Hoping they stretch a little bit after I fire them. Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. Hornady brass hasn't impressed me in the time I've used it, and the only reason I've used it so far, when I bought the 204, is it was the only brass that was available for that. So, yeah, that's... So I've got it sorted now after a few shots, and like I said, uniforming the depth of the primer pockets. But okay, Richard's on there. All right, David Smith. Different powders cannot substitute load data. Yes, very true. All right, hold on, boys. A few come up. It's so easy. She knows again. All right, hold on. Let me check here that I've missed anyone. Dan and Aussie Kelpie are having a bit of communication there. It's good. Dale J's put some specs up. Goran G. Hey Robbo, so what are the basic differences between factory and hand loads? Is there any inherent accuracy advantage with hand loads, and why? I understand the money saving side of it. So let me just quickly think about that question, because there's not just one answer for that. Basic differences between factory and hand loads. It's sort of a fine-tuned load, as in hand loads, to suit your rifle, to suit your barrel, to find the velocity that barrel rings true. In other words, gets the best group out of it. With factory ammunition, the consistency in a lot of brands of factory ammunition, especially between batches, can vary. So in other words, your velocities may change between batches, and they may also change between rounds. One thing that I strive for with my hand loads is sort of not only to get the best velocity out of that round, in other words, wring its neck. That's what I tend to do with most of my hand loads, within reason. The other thing is, especially for my long range stuff, is to get very little velocity variation between rounds. In other words, I would prefer to have 10 feet a second variation between shots with a 1/3 or 1/2 minute of angle group than a 1/4 minute of angle group, a quarter group at say 100 yards, it's got 50 feet a second variation. In normal hunting rounds, you're probably going to notice very little difference. And as long as you can, again, look, what you need to get a group size for, say, for sambar deer is not going to be the sort of group you're going to need for, say, rabbit shooting at the same distance. So not one answer there. But I'll just double check that I've answered that correctly, to my knowledge anyway. But basically, look, it's pretty much the ability that you can tune your load to suit your rifle. Where really with factory ammunition, it's a luck of the draw, and you've got to try a whole lot. You do have to try a lot with hand loads as well until you get it right. But basically, yeah, it's a bit more the luck of the draw. Yes, the boys are answering some of the questions here. Thank you very much. Kane Worthy. Hey Rob, in my 223 I'm running 55 grain Sierra Blitz King from AO. What are the advantages in hand loads over these, as I'm getting great groups and results at present? Well, another thing that you can do once you've got all your brass and whatever is you will save coin. Once you've got your brass, your powder, if you're not having to buy brass all the time, your factory loads compared to hand loading is going to be more expensive. But if it's shooting well and you're not doing a lot of shots and you're happy to pay the price, we'll stick with it. That's really where it comes down to. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay. Shushan Mackenzie. Hey, legend. I don't know here. Been considering doing a few hand loads, but I'm a bit confused. Don't worry, mate. Join the club. My mate Miles reckons I should load blanks for my rifle. What does he mean? Are they worth a go? I don't know. Maybe he's taking the piss. Maybe he thinks you're a bit of a shit shot, and maybe you got a flinch. Maybe he's saying load some blanks in between your shots, and maybe get someone else to load your magazine while you're testing. I don't know. I can't see any reason why you would load blanks, mate. I really don't know the situation. Chris Fifus, or Fifus, I'd say it's Fifus. You can correct me, Chris. I bought a Browning X-Bolt 7mm 08. Is it big enough? Tassie fellow. Certainly is, mate. Christian Hackle. What's your thoughts on federal ammo? Never shot it, but I believe there's a few varieties now in it. So, and I have heard some guys saying that they've got some really good results from it. So again, a bit of a general question. Yeah, and like I said, I'm not up with all the factory ammos, but I know there is, I think, 2 or 3 different of their premium grades, and a lot of guys have been quite happy with them. But again, the issue you may have is availability of any factory ammunition, and that's why I always say to people that if they're going to shoot a lot, or they're going to travel around a lot and they're going to use factory ammo, make sure you can get something that's going to be available, unless you're prepared to buy a lot before you go. So that's where the core locks are pretty good. If you can get them to shoot, you can buy them in just about any gun shop or place that sells ammunition just about Australia wide. Sam Barr. G'day, Robbo. Just wanted to know what primer seater you reckon is best, and have you tried a ram style that attaches to your press, RCBS, and Lee make them? No, I used to just use my press and whatever, but I actually have 2 different ones. If you bear with me for a second, I'll grab them. Right, back in the room. Now, both of these are RCBS. I'm going to show you now, but there is a difference. Now, you'll notice that this one, I'll get that in focus, the bottom one there is actually you need to put your brass sizing shell holder in there. With this one, the later one I bought, which I think is a better option, basically will suit any brass, or within reason. So you don't have to keep changing the shell holders. So yeah, I have 2. That's the first one I bought. That's the one that I probably use the most now. And the only thing you have to change is from on here is either large, or in this one you'll see I've got I think that's a small off the top of my head. Yeah, that's a small. Yeah, the good thing with these is it's sort of, obviously you got the canister that goes on the side. You can actually feel the sort of the primer seating better. You get a better feel. And look, they've worked for me. Doesn't mean they're the only ones to go out and buy, but yeah, I like to keep it pretty simple. So, all right, how are we going here? I hate missing out on anyone, guys. When I scroll down, I miss a little bit here. Okay. Aussie Outdoors. When working up a load for a rifle, do you ladder test to find a node, then fine tune with seating depth, or just load to performance, e.g. go maximum load and go from there? I've only ever ladder tested once, and I've never really seen the benefit in that rifle I did. A lot of people love it. A lot of people find it to be really good. But in all fairness, I usually a bit old school. Depending on the load, I'll start off with probably about 20th thou off the lands as far as my seating of my projectile, providing it goes in the mag. And then I'll just sort of work up in 0.5 grain increments. Once I get close and it's starting to group well, then I'll either back off 0.2 either side, and then again, the final thing I'll do is tune with the seating depth. And most times that's worked well for me. But the most important thing is just don't bang away. I mean, one shot after the other. Just keep that rifle in a situation that it's normally going to be in other words, cold barrels. That's the trick. So be patient, let your barrel cool. Okay, Richard Hadfield. Sorry, Dale typo. Okay, he's just answering there. Yeah, Dale's answering a couple of questions there. Omar, do you know anything about PPU factory ammo? You used some of it years ago and kept some of the brass, but it wasn't. Look, I'd be sort of giving you bad information if I made any comment, because it's been, actually, was it PPU or PPC? About 20 or 30 years since I've used any of that, so I couldn't tell you, mate. Bo Clemson, hey Robbo, sorry I'm late, mate. Was wondering, well, I hope you've got a letter from your mother. Sorry I'm late. Oh, blimey, at least you're here, mate. Was wondering what you think on size of pellet for the 300 Win Mag for deer. Thanks, mate. Sorry if you already covered it. No, I haven't covered it, and it's a good question, mate. And deer, well, I'm going to talk Samba. Probably the 300 Win Mag. It's got the engine room probably from anything probably to 180 to 220. So yeah, it's got the balls to do it. So yeah, Samba 180 220 would be sort of my choice. If you go on the sort of lighter deer, well, you got a hell of a gun there, and you could probably shoot 180s or lower. But I wouldn't go under 165s with 300 Win Mag. But then again, 150s would probably be pretty explosive on the smaller, lighter deer as well. Dan Stevens, something off topic. That's all right, mate. Your questions are always good. But I received a letter today, regarding the reclassification of lever action shotguns. Seems like paving the way for mag restrictions. I've heard a little bit about this of recent, and I held off from getting a lever action shotgun. One, I didn't like some of the guns that were actually produced. And I thought I'll sit back and wait, and I'm glad I did, to be honest with you. So nothing would surprise me, mate. Bradley Tyrrell, g'day Robbo. I find it more satisfying taking game with my hand loads and using factory loads. Makes all the work you put in worth the time. Very much so, mate, and very similar to anything you do with hunting situation, whether it's loading loading hand loads for hunting purposes, or making your own arrows for shooting deer with the old bow. So yeah, look, I can hear where you're coming from there. Christian Hackle, what's the best all-round grain for hunting Samba for the 30-06? 180 grain, mate. Probably where I'd start and work around from there. But again, 180 grain core locked, 180 grain Woodley, they're all just tried and true projectiles for Samba. Dustin Holmes, g'day Robbo, what powder and how much do you use in your 243? Oh geez, I'm giving all my secrets away now. Well, in my varmint gun, I'll double check, 44 grains of 2208 behind the 87 grain VMAX, but that is a hot stout load, so don't go straight to that. Yeah, and that's with a 30-inch barrel. So yeah, work up to those sort of things and make sure you keep consistency with your brass. Richard Hadfield, I love to buy Aussie, however, bought trusty Aussie Outback in 223 from Horsham late last year and found same price yet reloaded rounds from Benalla brass use. Yeah, mate, it's, I don't know. Okay. Like I said, I sort of keep just in with what factory ammo is available, but in all fairness, in centerfires, I virtually hand load just about for every one of my guns, purely because I'm set up and purely because I've seen the benefits. Robin Coker, late again. Jeez, mate, you must be a busy man. Actually, I've got to watch your video. Cash register. Love it. G'day Robbo. Big manufacturers such as Hornady and Remington have bumped up their prices ridiculously lately. Corporate hogwash at its finest. Hand loads are the way of the future. Yeah, I hope you're right, mate. But again, you just got to keep your own stock with your projectiles and primers and everything, because it's nothing worse than thinking, oh yeah, I've got enough, that'll do me for this year. Then you go back to buy them, and there's no produce, it's not the powder you want, or there's no primers available. So yeah, keep a little bit of stock. That's my advice. Excuse me, guys. Just need to lube up. Shifty. Hey mate, I have my eyes on a 270 for some deer here in Vic. It's seen 700 rounds. Would the barrel life still be good if it's been looked after? Yeah, of course it would be. But I'll be honest with you, most people that think they're looking after their rifles, I've watched the way they've cleaned them. I can tell you now, it's far from looking after them. So yeah, you really need to look at the owner just as much as the rifle. So I've seen barrels with 2,000 rounds on them that are really good, depending on caliber, and I've seen rifles with probably 30 rounds through them that are 30 years old, sitting in a farmer's shed that are knackered. So no general answer there, mate. You need to inspect it. Cask Asna. Jeez. Hi, Robbo. How fast do you run your 162 grain ELDX in your 7mm rem mags? Well, the Rough Tech's got a longer barrel. They're running it around, off the top of my head, around the 3100, 3150. Both the same loads in both the 7mm rem mags. And with the Tikka, the shorter barrel, they're running around 3050. Again, can vary a little bit with RE22 depending on temperature, but I don't very often get a variation of more than about 25 feet a second either way. The Scott 89, I shoot factory and then reload the brass. Best of both would. Yep, that's how I got a lot of my brass early on. Thomas, top show, good on you. Thanks, mate. G'day, Khadijah. It's good to catch up on the weekend, mate. I know you've got a big trip planned very soon, and you've been very busy at a couple of other shows, so good on you for spreading the word. Been busy day, but I made it here. Yeah, it's good to see you, mate. Good to see you. Yeah, and I'm doing all right. Hamish Robertson. Hey, Steve. What loads would you recommend for the 444 Marlin? Oh, now there is a round I haven't heard of for a long time. And the only one I ever knew that loaded them was a tradesman when I was an apprentice. So that's a hell of a long time ago. And if I remember correctly, that 444 Marlin might have quite thin brass too. So look, 444 Marlin? No, I'm more thinking of something different anyway, for shooting pigeons and rabbits. I don't know. I think you might be taking the piss here, Hamish. Blimey, some of these names are challenging. Tom Svetskopoulos. Hey mate, can't decide. Tikka Superweight, Seiko Rough Tech Pro, X-Bolt Hell's Canyon in 7mm rem mag. Look, I'm probably sway towards the finish sort of selection. What suits you in the end would be my choice. Primarily, I think in the end the Tikka Seiko have got far better triggers. That's just how I've seen them. So, look, put them up to you, see how they fit. Often Brownings, some Brownings have been quite short in the length of pull as well, so just double check it as well. And the trouble is, often you can't tell the exact length of pull until you actually mount the scope up as well. So yeah, you can sort of get a feel for it, but fine tuning, just check that they're not too short. If you're a shorter bloke or a smaller guy, it might be perfect. Khadijah, I don't reload, but I will be in the future, hopefully. I use Winchester and Browning and Federal ammo, which hasn't failed me yet. Well, again, that's spot on. If it doesn't let you down and it gets the job done, that's all that matters in the end. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and if you're not firing a lot of shots, say in deer hunting situations, and you haven't already got your hand loading gear, probably stick to factory. Chris Tilley, I've heard that some of the classic cartridges such as 3006, 270 are loaded down in factory loads so they are safe in older actions. Thoughts on loading these cartridges a bit hotter than factory? Look, it's pretty standard that factory ammunition is never loaded as much as they say it is. I don't think I've ever bought any factory ammunition and chronographed it that has been anywhere near the specs. Now, that comes down to a few things, barrel length and whatever, temperature, but it's usually underloaded. And look, in all fairness, my 308 and my Finlight, by the time I started getting some of the powders really performing, and I was getting speeds that were sort of probably going to be faster than the same projectile in a 3006. So yeah, it is, factory ammo has to be loaded down because they don't know what's going to be run through. So it's obviously a safety factor. Jason Selms, g'day mate. I'm a bit late to the party, that's alright, better late than ever, never I should say. Do you think annealing brass is worth it for longevity of brass? No, I don't think so. To be honest with you, by the time, I think most of the times I feel that my brass is getting to the point of disposal. It's not the neck that's the issue, it's usually because I push it pretty hard. It's usually primer pockets are starting to get loose. So as soon as they start to get loose, out goes the brass. So usually I haven't found a point that I've got to that I thought I'd really need to anneal it. So for hunting load and even some of the varmint stuff, me personally, I haven't seen the need to go out and spend the money and time on doing something else. But if you want to do it, it's not going to hurt. But me personally, I wouldn't race out and do it. Anthony Horgos, another question, if you don't mind, mate. No, mate, that's a pleasure. How many times would you reload the same shell? Depends on brass, but I've never very often got less than 5, some up to 8 or 9. But I'll be honest, sometimes some brass gets mixed in and you think, oh, was that 1 or 2 rounds that's had through? But again, I keep a good close eye on my brass, and just you sort of, there's a few telltale signs that you can start to see that you think, and if in doubt, throw it out. It's pretty simple. Kane Worthy, thanks Robbo. Is it necessary to have a cookie duster to know so much about honey? Also, does the cookie duster aid in using a tenterfield? Little off topic, but a valid question nonetheless. Mate, I got no idea what you're talking about. Cookie duster. Dale J, do you buy your powder in the 500 gram bottles or the 3.5 kilo jugs to keep powder batches the same? Depends on the brands, mate, but usually, and depends on the rifle, I tend to buy enough, like I said, to keep me going for a while. So if I pick it up cheap, yeah, I'll buy the bigger batches. And if it's something that I like, the varmint loads that I'm firing a lot more shots, yeah, I'll buy the bigger tubs. But not very often. I tend to stick to the smaller ones and buy a few of them. That way, once you crack them open, you're not worried about sort of contaminating a big container. You're only going to contaminate a smaller container at the worst if you forget to seal it properly. Shifty, speaking of the 243 before, I do a fair bit of fox shooting with the old Triple Juice, one of my favourite guns. I was looking at a 243 with 58 grain VMAX, too hot. No, look, it's going to be super fast and you're going to start pushing your barrel quite a bit. And obviously a standard 243 is 1 in 10, which is probably not ideal for a 58, but I've seen them shoot real well too. So if you think you've got the need for it and you really want to slam them out there, but personally, the heavier pills are far better off as far as versatility, especially downrange, especially on those windy nights. Thomas Cabell, hey mate, thoughts on neck sizing versus factory resizing for hunting rounds? I'm not sure what you mean about factory resizing, probably full length resizing I think you talk about. I actually did a video on that, and if you have a look through some of my videos, I basically show how I tell whether I need to full length size or neck size. But in short, I only neck size unless I see the need for full length sizing. And one of the ways that I know if I need a full length size is when I start to feel some resistance in the drop of my bolt handle. And yeah, I have go back through some of my videos. Can't remember off the top of my head which one it is, but you'll find it, mate. If you can't, give me a message and I'll send you the link. Dustin Holmes, what do you think of AR2209 in a 22-250? And also, do you have any experience with the Lithgow centerfire rifles? I've got no experience for both those, mate. Never used a 22-250, but it's, yeah, you just get on the old Nick Harvey book. He's got some good info on those sort of rounds, and he's got more realistic powder charge weight. So it's a good book to have if you haven't got it. Lithgow centerfire rifles, no, I haven't had any experience with them, mate. Goran, hey Robbo, I have a shitload, technical term, of 223 once fired factory brass in lots of brands. Is there a market for this stuff? Also, about 100 pieces of once fired 6.5mm Creedmoor brass. Yes, mate, get on the forums, but you're going to have to batch it up. Not many people are going to want mixed brass. Some might, but to be honest with you, better off putting it in batches and selling it in batches. Cash register. Not something I would personally recommend, but my great uncle back in Ireland used to put a few pepper granules in his shotgun reloads for preservation reasons to some success. Okay, something different. I've heard of saltpeter, obviously, in shotties. Sambo, just wondering if you had a go at bullet coatings like HBN. I haven't had a go at it, but I used to use the 50 grain VMAX Molly, and to be honest with you, I reckon it ruined my barrel on one of my 222s. I'll never do it again. I just stick with standard brass. Maybe I just didn't clean it. Maybe the cleaning method I was using was wrong for that, but yeah, I sort of got hooked up with the whole thing, Molly projectiles and whatever, and to be honest with you, it was a waste of time. Dustin Holmes, you would probably get about 2,000 rounds through a 243 with 58 grain VMAX. Again, depends how well you clean it and look after it. Righto, we're getting towards the end, but here we go. Hadeep Odja. Hey cuz, need some advice for buying ammo. What is the cheapest ammo on the market for 308? Because if I get something over $10, my wife will beat the living shit out of me. Well, buy half a packet. There you go. Oh, look, mate, Factory Ammo again. Probably not the expert on which brand is the cheapest, but look, again, if you want reliability, performance overall for the 308, again, I'll probably sound like a broken record, but the 150 grain core locks are probably going to be very good value for money in more ways than one. So maybe split the packet between a couple of you and your mates. What do we got? Dale J, Lithgow centerfire real nice rifle, but I found the length of pull too short for me. Yeah, look, that seems to be the case on a lot of guns, and look, I think maybe they're making them short, so if they make them too long, yeah, people nowadays don't want to get guns fitted to them properly. They don't want to have to cut stocks. They want something over the shelf. So probably making them shorter, it's easy for someone to go out and stick a thicker recoil pad on and or a butts, sort of a spacer between the pad and whatever. So maybe that's why they're doing it. I tend to agree. There's a lot of rifles now that I think are too short in the length of pull. My old man put flour in the shot and double powder with his shotgun, dropped the duck at 90 yards with it. I'm sure there's some pretty dodgy old remedies out there with shotguns. Shifty. Alright. Hey Robbo. Recommendations on a scope for spotlighting for foxes, say $1,000 to $1,500. Probably in that range. I would look at the Z3 4 to 12 by 50. I think it's a really good little scope, and I've obviously got one myself in that price range. If we're talking Aussie dollars, maybe a fraction over the 1,500 now. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the prices for a while, but that would be straight up pretty versatile little scope. Hadeep Oja. Also, have you caught a 3 metre flatty? Because I caught a 2.8 flatty on the weekend. Well, good luck to you, mate. Good luck to you. That's a huge fish. Righto, looks like we're down to the last question. Goran G. Dustin Holmes, I have the wife's gun, a 22 mag and lift go, shoots 5-shot groups at 50 yards, about the size of a blowfly. A mate has the same rifle in 17 HMR and groups are the size of a 5-cent piece. Yeah, look, if I've heard a couple of things about recalls on some of the lift goes, but as far as overall, I think most people that have had them are pretty happy with them. And I know down at the SSAA shooting ranges and whatever, they're the guns that they sort of, they're club guns, and I don't think they've had any issues with them in the 22s. And anyone and everyone down at that club that comes in and wants to have a crack, literally, are using them. So yeah, I think they've swapped over to those and been quite happy with them. Tom Setskopos, hey mate, why is 7 rem mag rifles hard to buy, as in not popular? Is factory 7mm ammo easy to buy? Well, I again only bought a little bit of it at the start and I never had any issues. I can't see why it would be hard to buy. Maybe just look at where you are, your location, but I don't think it's any harder to buy that I've seen than any other brands or any other calibre. Stephen Popey, g'day mate, how are you? Jason, I know you made a previous video on it, electronic scales versus balance beams. Sorry if already asked. Yeah, you know my thoughts on that, and look, again, simple's good. I'd stick to the balance beam. If you're just going to go out and buy one thing, I would buy a good, well, I say one thing, I would buy a good balance beam scale. Obviously not the one that you've got with the magnets in it. Yeah, an old 505, but someone told me recently too that the old RCBS 505 scale was actually made by Ohas or Ohorse, but the new ones aren't. So yeah, maybe you can get hold of some of the older stuff. And look, it's pretty common with a lot of stuff, you know. Maybe some of the new stuff isn't as good as what was made years ago. So, but still, for me, balance beam every day. Dustin Holmes, do you shop with a minimum BC in mind when looking for bullets? Depends on application, mate. But sometimes BC doesn't come into it. Like if I'm looking for my 44 mag, shots under 200 yards, I'm not worried about BC. I'm worried about weight, velocity, and knockdown power. But yeah, if I'm sort of going to the 7 mils and whatever, you got to find that sweet spot between velocity and ballistic coefficient. So yeah, it's generally no, but obviously for the longer range stuff, BC velocity comes right into it. Richard Hatfield, Saturday going to be the last Samba walk for the year. Bring on rain, please. Going to need it. Well, I don't know what would be the last hunt. Just hunt differently would be my advice. Never give up on it. But bring on the rain. I think we're going to get wet on the weekend, boys. I've got a feeling from Saturday on in Vic, it's going to be pretty wet. So we'll see how we go. Yeah, Goran G's just talking about the Lithgow 223 and 243 had recalls due to a single gun having a barrel defect crack. Rim 5s have been flawless. Thanks, mate. Kane Worthy, hey Robbo, to confirm you're wearing your cookie duster on your top lip at present. Okay, I'm with you now. Okay. Righto, mate, I love the cookie duster and it's not going. You know, how can I do any of my porn videos about that? Stephen Popey, I'm looking for an 8mm for hunting Samba. Well, that's a calibre that old Nick Harvey, I think, used there for a while. I've had no experience with it whatsoever. So get on old Nick there, mate. He used to use it quite a bit. Yeah. Cash register, any confirmation from yourself on the Chittles in East Gippsland? Heard a rumour on Facebook. Yeah, I've heard a few things too, mate. Look, to be honest with you, deer are on the move. Samba deer, Chittle, fallow, whatever, they're all on the move. And like any animal, they'll want to survive. So if it's been pretty dry in New South Wales and it's been greener down south, they're going to start slowly migrating, mate. But and vice versa. You'd be surprised at the distance they will cover. Survival is, a pretty important thing. Go on, gee, another great tech video. Thanks for the answers. No worry, go on. Pleasure, mate. Antel L. Hey, bud, keep on the good work, bud. What scope do you recommend on a Tikka 7mm 08 for deer hunting up to 250 metres on average? Probably best value for money, I would say the 3 to 10 by 42 Z3, to be honest with you. Just over the grand, I think. Great lightweight scope. I think they're only like 300 grams, 330 grams. So on a 7mm 08, if you want 250 metres, yeah, definitely 3 to 10 by 40, 42 or whatever they are would be my choice. Thanks, Aussie. Thanks, mate. SA Feral Shooter Robbo, how's the bunnies in your neck of the woods? Yeah, very, very poor still, mate. And to be honest with you, I haven't been up on the bunny properties for a little while. And when we were up there about a month ago, very thin on the ground. Righto, I think we're just about done, mate. Hard deep. Heard a few water buffalo kicking around the heart. Can you confirm this? No idea, mate. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to finish this up. Thanks again for everyone watching, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.